Now, Mr. Pass says it plays 2 to 6 players. One thing I want to mention right off the bat is that we have played this with more than 6 players. We played with 7, 8, 9 players, and the reason being is because this is kind of for us. This is a code names replacement game. This is a game that fills a similar, itch or niche as like code names. But rather than having teams, you're all working collaboratively. And because you're all working collaboratively together, you can essentially have as many clue guessers as you want at the table. There's just only enough wizards for there to be at most 6 clue setters. So I'm going to teach the game, and I'm going to talk about why you can, or why and how you can incorporate other people who want to just have join in the fun of giving their opinions on what clues might lead to and whatever. But let's talk about how you play the game. So first off, you've got these plastic wizards and you've got little X tokens in their color. You're going to have these path cards. You're going to have some cards that track what round you're on, because it's a finite round game. It's a 5-round game. Okay, and you're going to have a bunch of these cards that are going to have word clues on them, and a bunch of these tokens that are double-sided, and they're going to have words or short compound words like social media, whatever. You're going to also have maybe some trophy tokens for if you do really well. We'll get these out of the way. And every player is going to have a set in their color of tokens that are going to double-sided, number 1 through 10. So they're going to have 5 tokens. So notice the 10's on the other side of the 5. So you do 1 through 5 and flip over and do 6 through 10. And I'm going to talk about some things, okay? But let's get set up for the teach, and I'll show you how this is played, and I'll show you just some of the things that we do and consider, okay? So you put the little. This is a great game, by the way. This is a really good game. Almost everybody enjoys playing this game. We do recommend this game. So there's a whole bunch of these. We just take them. We generally just take all. Generally, we'll do take the box lid, take all of these because there's a bunch of them. I'm not going to get them all out, but you take them. They're double-sided. You just mix them around in the lid of the box. Blah blah blah, and you're going to get some random, assortment, and you're just going to fill in, randomly until every single space has one, right? I'm just doing a teach here, so I'm not doing a full randomization of all the potential ones, because like I said, there's a bunch of these. We normally just put them in the lid and shuffle them, mix them up and shuffle them that way, and you just put them out. And this would be the board for the whole game, and then the rest of these you will not use. And this whole deck, you're going to give a complete shuffle to, and everybody's going to start with 4 of these face down. So however many, up to the 6 players that are moving meeples. You can have more people than that, and I'm going to get to that. But for everybody who's controlling a wizard, they are a clue setter, and it's fully cooperative. Everybody's fully cooperatively, collaboratively working on this together. But you have to keep your cards secret to yourself. Okay. And everybody's going to get one of these randomly that they cannot show to anyone else. Okay? So, blah, blah, blah. Okay? And you'll be seeing, I'll be showing you what all of these look like. And they're going to get their little, number tokens. So let's say the black, or the the black wizard player is over here, and so forth. Okay. One thing I will point out, first let me get the rest of these components out, and then I'll point some things out. Okay. People will do this thing sometimes of trying to put the wizard in the base because it fits in there. It's not meant to go that way. The base, the hollow side is meant to go face down, and your wizard is meant to stand on top. Okay. So that's number one: is don't put the wizard inside the base. Stand the wizard on top of the base. Okay. That's a thing to know. Okay. Secondly, let's talk about the white player. If you have less than 6 players, if you have 6 players, you're using all 6 colors. If you have less than 6 players, we recommend not playing with white. Why? Because they've made an odd choice. I mean, it was a choice. You know, odd or otherwise, it was a choice that they made, and it's fine. But not everybody knows their Roman numerals. So you'll notice that, like, the yellow player is using Arabic numerals 1 through 10, as is the black player, as is the green player, as is the blue player, right? And the red player. They're all using these number tokens that are Arabic numerals, you know, the numbers that we use today, right? Everybody knows, 1 through 10. Unless you're the white player. If you're the white player, you're using suddenly Roman numerals for some who knows what reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 10. That's a 9. It's a 6. This is a 7. And this side would be the 8. Yay. Okay. I know my Roman numerals. You probably know your Roman numerals. But especially if you're playing with children, or you're just playing with people who aren't super familiar with Roman numerals, or they get the 4 and the 6 confused because these might be upside down to them. Notice that, depending upon, you know, which way these are oriented, it can be a little confusing, like between the 4 and the 6, which is which, and it's inconsistent. It's not consistent with the way these are numbered. So we just, for multiple reasons, we just recommend that, you know, unless someone just really wants to be white, sure, they can be white. There's not a problem with that. But if people really don't care and you've got only 5 people, you know, 3, 4, 5 people playing, choose to not play with white, and you don't deal with the Roman numerals. So that's a thing that I'm going to point out. First off, okay, is that white's kind of weird in that way. You know, just that it's Roman numerals. Okay, your round deck should be round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This has 1 gem filled in, 2 gems filled in, but also has the round number. Okay. At the end of each round, just take the current round card, put it at the bottom. And when you are on round 5, you know that that's the last round, and then when you're back, when you know you go there, you know the game is over. That's what's going to end the game, is end of round 5. Okay? So, you just have a round deck. Starting spaces are the circle clues, these spaces, we're going to call these the spaces. So the space next to a gate. So here's a gate, here's a gate, 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 and gate. They have different art, different colors, but what I want to be clear about is, and the rules even state this, and this is the case, don't worry about your wizard starting at the color gate that matches your wizard. You can if you want to, but really it's just better to start at the gate that is nearest to where you're sitting. So if someone's sitting on that side of the table and they're playing blue, it's fine. They can start at this gate, which means their wizard is starting basically on aluminum foil in this case. Okay? Likewise, it just so happens that if the yellow player is sitting here, that the yellow gate is near them and they're going to start a black hole. But it doesn't have to be that way. Green can start over here at the blue gate, okay? Just start at a gate that is closest to where you are sitting. That is most important. The reason being is that everybody's going to get one of these, and this is their secret map. And the way to read this map is you need to orient this map. You can't show it to anybody, but you need to orient it so that your starting space, the space next to the gate that you're starting at, right, is the star, and then you orient it to go directly across. So in this case, yellow, if this is yellow's map, and yellow starting here, then this is space 1 for yellow, and this is space 2 for yellow, and 3 for yellow. And everybody's going to have 10 steps, 10 spaces that they need to get to in sequential order over the course of the game by the end of 5 rounds. But everybody's map is going to be different. And everybody needs to orient their map per the orientation of their gate. So you want their gate to be the gate closest to where they're sitting so that they can orient the map the same way that they're sitting, as opposed to if I'm sitting here, this is what would happen. This is what I'm saying. If I choose to be the red player and I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I'm the red player, so I have to start at the red gate and I'm going to start there. Well, this has to be oriented this way, which is now upside down for me. So the entire time I'm looking at this the whole game, I'm going to be confused. Because I'm going to be looking at it like this, but it's meant to be oriented this way. So just avoid that confusion. If the red player is sitting here, have the red player start here so that they can look at this in the same general direction of which they're sitting. That's what's important. So this be in the orientation of your wizard going across, from where your wizard is going directly across, but also in the orientation where you're sitting going directly across. So make those two things the same. Okay? Is what we're trying to say. So everybody's going to, put out their wizard wherever, close to where they're sitting, kind of thing. Okay, fine. Let's say we're doing a 5-player game and this is our setup. Okay, fine. If you're a 6-player, someone would be starting over here as well. Okay. Notice, everybody has 10 steps. Some people are going to have completely 10 unique steps. Like in the case of the black wizard here, their steps are, they need to start here, and they need to go, over the course of the game, they need to go to 1, 2, 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and in the game here in the middle. Those are 10, completely unique steps. A wizard will never go back to their starting space. So everybody at the table will know that no matter what the clues are, if black started at Grand Canyon, black will never come back to Grand Canyon, ever. This path, none of these paths on any of these map cards ever have you crossing your star, your starting location. But like Red's map does have them use the same space for step 6 and 9, and it shows it with a 6/9. That is not a 6/9 step. It's just that it's both steps 6 and 9. So in the case of the red wizard, over the course of the game, they need to go from here, where they're starting, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they just came back here again, 10. However, even though it is possible for a map to visit the same space more than once, what will never happen on a map is an immediate backtrack. Meaning, it will never be the case that you go, 1, 2, 3. You never go, from here to here, right back to here again. If you're going to come back to here, you're going to travel around a little bit first before you come back to here. For that reason, they give you this stand. That's what the stand is for. Because it is a help to know that. So when red goes here, you will move this onto the path the way we play. It just says basically the space they came from, but we just put it on the path that they crossed. So now everybody knows that whatever the next clue is, because now they need the next, they're on step one, the wizard is at step one. And we know that the next clue is to get the wizard to step two. Well, we know the wizard can't go back across here. So step two must be here, 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 here. Those are the options. Once we get red to here, then this will go to here. And now we know that for red, step three must be here, here. It can't be here because they started the whole thing here. That's their star. And it can't be here because they're not going to immediately backtrack. So this just follows the wizard around and shows the last path they crossed because they will not immediately backtrack across that path again. That's the purpose of these bases. So you don't really want the wizard standing in the base. That defeats like that. That defeats the purpose. Don't do that. This base just kind of, this little donut just follows the wizard around. So then when they go to step three eventually, you go there. Now we know that step four has to be here, 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 here. It could be back to here. They were here in step one, but now we are far enough along in the path that coming here again, even though it's revisiting the space they were at before, it is legal. It is possible. We have to consider it because it's not an immediate backtrack. It's not crossing immediately over this red base again. So this is a potential. It's not correct in this case. In this case, they need to get to there. So that is picking gates, picking starting gates, interpreting your map. So let's talk about some things before, and then we'll talk about like turn, the round and turn order and that kind of thing. Okay. So I'm going to pretend that for the moment that I'm the red player. I don't like playing red, but that's what we're going to pretend, right? Just to put these, out. Okay. And you got the blue player over there somewhere. Okay. Once everybody has a map, that's the map that they'll have. Once everybody has a map key, which they have to keep private, you just look at it yourself. You don't show it to other players. You may not show it to other players. That's cheating. But once everybody has a map key, right? So everybody has a map key. The rest go in the box. This is the map key that everybody will be using for the whole game. Okay. Before we even get started, when you do the initial putting these discs out, these words, we recommend, it's not part of the rules, it's not written in the rules, the rules just say randomize it, but we recommend the way we play is, as a group, just look, before anyone, looks at their clues or even looks at their map, before anyone looks at their map or looks at their clues, just don't look at the stuff yet, just look at those words and see if there are any two, if there are, two next to each other that are near synonyms or very similar or that the same clues would lead to. A great example I like to use is we've had games where randomly we've had like toilet be here and diaper be here. Well, as you might imagine, there's a limited number of clues you can give that are going to, like if a wizard is here and you're trying to debate is based upon clues given, are they trying to go to toilet or are they trying to go to diaper? Well, guess what? Toilet and diaper share a lot of, similarities. I mean, as far as what goes in them and how they might be described on a scale of, beautiful to disgusting, or, like that kind of thing, right? So we might, as a group, before we even look at clues or maps, just go, we don't want diaper and toilet next to each other. So we might just take diaper and just flip it, switch it out for another one over here or switch it out for one in here, just so that we don't have two very similar words right next to each other. And that's just because it can be a hard enough game as it is. You don't need it to be extra hard. You don't need it to be randomly, just by poor luck, extra hard on everybody. Because with 10 steps, every single wizard is going to cover a good portion of this map, at least potentially. And I say potentially because they're really only going to cover 10 steps. or 10 of these spaces, or, over the course of the game. But when they're out here, everybody's having to consider all of these clues. When they're here, everybody's having to consider all of these as potential, what the clues are leading to. When they're here, everybody has to consider all of these. So by the time you do 10 steps, basically for every wizard, for every player, all of these spaces are going to be considered as a potential step for that wizard at some point, right? These maps are kind of devised in such a way that it's very unlikely for any of these spaces. Like when I'm at 5, this is a potential for 6. When I'm at 1, this is a potential for 2, right? When I'm at 7, this and this are both potentials. And this is, even though this was the correct one, right? When I'm at 8, this is a potential. So almost all of these spaces, even though they're not the spaces you're actually going to, travel to, they're spaces that will need to be considered by the other players. So if there is a situation like toilet next to diaper, or donut next to cookie, that's another one. Like if you've got donut next to cookie, for instance, that's maybe a less gross example of this. If you've got like donut here and cookie here, because those are both tiles in here. If you've got donut and cookie next to each other, then there at some point in time, for every single player, there's going to be that problem where am I here? I'm here, I'm here, and this is donut and this is cookie. How am I going to signal to the other players at the table the difference between a donut and a cookie? Like, that they need to go to donut and not go to cookie. Every player is going to have that conundrum. So, and the game is hard enough as it is without adding that extra level of difficulty to everybody. So if you see donut next to cookie, just replace cookie. Or see, toilet next to diaper, replace one, right? Or just move it, right? So because what you want to be able to do is look at the board and be able to go, oh, okay, there's enough difference between Cookie Monster and the things around Cookie Monster. It doesn't have to be completely different. Meaning, Cookie Monster and frosting and sausage pizza, those are all like food-related items. But there's enough clues you can give about that lead to Cookie Monster that won't lead to sausage pizza or frosting. And even if sausage pizza was right next to frosting, like, let's say, literally, it was more like this, even that's not really a problem because sausage pizza is a savory food and frosting's not even a full entree or food. It's a part of a food, but it's a sweet part, right? And Cookie Monster has a personality. So these we wouldn't worry about trying to replace or think that they're too similar, right? But things like cookie and donut, they're both, you know how similar cookie and donut is at the end of the day. It's a sweet, pastry-based treat. So if you give clues about sweetness or about good or yummy or delightful or, happy or whatever. And so let's talk about the clues. Before we even talk about like the terms, let's talk about what these clues look like. Clues you're going to be giving are going to be single word clues. Because what you're going to be doing is like, let's say, step 1, like I'm going to be programming. Everybody's going to be simultaneously, for their turn, they've got 4 of these cards, but they can only put out in the first 4 rounds, you can only put out 2 clues or 3, steps, clues for 3 steps each round. So in the first round, everybody's going to be simultaneously programming clues for their first, second, and third steps. So let's just do that now. So I'm looking at my map, and I know that I need the other players to guess that I'm starting at sausage pizza, but I need them to guess that I'm going from here to Cookie Monster, then to Black Hole, then to Fire Ants, then to Air Conditioned Shoes, whatever that is, right? So I need to put a single word clue under number 1 that will take them to Cookie Monster. Then a single word clue under number 2 that will take them from Cookie Monster to black hole. Then a single word clue under number 3 that will take them from black hole to fire ants. This is what I have to work with. I've got 8 total words, but 2 words per card, and I'm going to use one of these cards. Let's talk about the not tokens, because I haven't gotten these out and I should have. Everybody's going to get not tokens in their color, and knots do serve a few purposes. I'm only going to really use the red ones to demonstrate for this teach real quick. Okay, so get some red not tokens, but everybody would get the not tokens in their color. Okay, we'll just leave the rest right there. So what I can do is this gives me the option when I'm programming is I could reverse. I could say instead of timid, I could go, oh, not timid. Well, Cookie Monster can be, kind of, exuberant and wild and flamboyant, right? So I might say, oh, Cookie Monster is not timid. But the problem is people might think, well, black hole can be very destructive, and that's not timid, right? So that might lead me away from that. But that's the point, is I'm going to look at these, and I'm going to be, oh, well, so what's good? Well, if I can get them to Cookie Monster, I might be tempted to say icy for black hole, because black holes, depth of space and cold, can be cold and all that, right? They're not really, but people think of it that way. But people might think frosting for icy, like icy. So I wouldn't want to do that, right? So in this case, for like Cookie Monster, I might describe Cookie Monster as handsome. Now, do I necessarily think that Cookie Monster is handsome? No, but I'm just saying that out of these choices, that people don't get to see what my other choices are, I'm going to cover the word that's not the clue, leave exposed the word that is the clue. If I wanted to say not handsome, I would just put an X on it to say not handsome instead of handsome. But I'm going to say Cookie Monster is handsome. Why? Because Cookie Monster at least is a guy, or, he's a creature, or, right? I mean, he's a puppet, but at the end of the day, he's, we pretend that, he's Cookie Monster, right? So he has the potential to be handsome, whereas frosting can't ever really be described as handsome, and black holes are probably never going to be described as handsome, but someone might think that Cookie Monster is handsome. Oh, no, So we're like, oh, okay, hopefully of the 3, because their options are only what's connected by the path. So from Sausage Pizza, my step 1 has to be either black hole, Cookie Monster, or frosting. Hopefully, they will deduce that handsome could probably only really apply to Cookie Monster. So that's what I'm going to program for step 1. Then I'm like, okay, now once they get to Cookie Monster, assuming that they do get me to Cookie Monster, out of all of these options, because they'll know not to go back to Sausage Pizza, but out of all of these options, I need them to go to black hole. So what I might do is I might say not young. Why? Well, because I'm taking a risk, because maybe people think social media appeals to old people, but it really appeals to young people too, right? So maybe young, my thinking is maybe not young. People will think of stuff that's like very old time-wise, like, been around for a long time. And most black holes have been around, millions of billions of years, right? So they're not young, right? They predate the Earth, right? So they're like the oldest of the options. So they're not young, right? So that might be the clue that I program for black hole. Then I assume they can get the black hole. I want them to go to fire ants. And I might, as opposed to like Albert Einstein or Cookie Monster. Because they won't go to Cookie Monster, because once they're at black hole, they'll know that they can't go to Cookie Monster, because that would be there. So I just have to get them to fire ants versus Albert Einstein. So what I might do is I might say not mellow. Why? Because I think fire ants are very aggressive. These tokens are red, by the way. They're kind of worn, so they look kind of white, but if you're sitting right on them, they are red. The white ones are a red X on a white background, versus the red ones are a white X on a red background. Anyway, this looks kind of white, but it's really a red X. Anyway. So this is my intention. I program these cards, and then the card I don't use, I keep face down. because I will add 3 more cards for the next round, and then I'll have a choice of 4, to use 3 out of my 4 cards again in the next round. So the way this works is everybody programs their cards. When everybody has their cards programmed, because we're fully cooperative, so it doesn't really matter what order we go in. We're just going to pick somebody to go that we're going to concentrate on first. So let's say that everybody decided to concentrate on me, the red player, first. So I'm starting here. And all they know, they don't know my map. This is secret to them, right? All they know is this. And they debate. They talk amongst themselves. But then the way we play, they have to come to consensus. And the way we play is consensus is demonstrated by touching with the finger. Is someone locks in. So let's say they figured out handsome. They made the correct guess on handsome. They go, black hole is not necessarily handsome. Frosting is not really described as handsome. Cookie Monster may be described as handsome. They debate it for a while. Someone else, disagrees, but they convince them. And they finally decide the majority vote or whatever. And someone presses Cookie Monster with their finger. I go, correct. I can't participate in the conversation. Just like if you played code names or other, clue guessing games with a clue giver and clue guessers. The clue giver can't react to. You can't use your facial expressions or your hands or your eyebrows or roll your eyes or grunt or otherwise. You cannot do anything to give away whether they're on the right path or the wrong path. You may not steer the clue guessers, okay? You just sit there and quietly sit through them debating stuff you never considered and making arguments that are in direct violation to your core beliefs when arguing for or against a step, right? Because they don't understand, your friends don't understand you, or your friends or family don't understand you as well as you thought they, hoped that they did. But regardless, you have to be there quietly and not react. But they program Cookie Monster. And then you just indicate that they were correct by moving your wizard there. And moving that to the path that you just crossed, indicating you're not going to cross back over that. We recommend that you don't put the wizard right on top of the words because that makes the word impossible to read unless someone else moves it. So someone else later in the round needed to also come into the same space because there's nothing that prevents like the green player from like starting here and going here and then having to go here, right, in the first round. You can have multiple wizards. You can have all the wizards on a single space. These maps are independent of each other, okay? But the problem is if you just put your character right on Cookie Monster and cover over the word, then the green player, in order to see what that word was, because it's the space on their map and they need to know what to give a clue for, now all of a sudden they're moving your red guy and you're wondering why they're moving the red guy and you're thinking, oh, they must be moving my red guy, my red wizard, because they needed to see what needed to be reminded that said Cookie Monster. Why did they need to be reminded that said Cookie Monster? Probably because they need to go to that space. And that's against the spirit of the game. That's too much information. So we recommend always never putting your guy on the words, just on the edge of the space so it's clear which space you're on, right? Don't fully cover the space. For the same reason, don't put the ring on the space, just put the ring on the path. So if they correctly pressed Cookie Monster, I'd go here. Everyone can still read that says Cookie Monster, but they see that I'm on that space. Put the red ring here. So that's the path I came across. I'm not going to go immediately backtrack. And then because they got it correct, I'm going to take this and I'm going to discard this. And I'm done with my step 1. Now they know they're still concentrating on me. Until they get it wrong or they get all my steps for the round, they just keep guessing for me until they're done with me or they guess something wrong. Let's say it gets to not young, and I misgauged what I thought that the conclusion they would come to. They didn't consider the fact that black holes are old in a physics, cosmological sense. They were thinking more like people or animals are young or old, and black holes just a thing in space, right, and not described as being young or not young. So they're like, oh, well, I guess they mean social media because those grannies are notorious for being on Facebook, right? So it's so he's making so and so's making a dig at social media, and so let's say they came to the conclusion that not young meant social media, and they press social media. Well, they're incorrect. So that's the other use of these not tokens. I don't say anything. I just indicate that they're incorrect by one, not moving my wizard. He's just still stuck there. But I put a little red X there. This will stay here until they do get the correct step 2. They can't guess anymore this round, but like next round, they're going to have to still guess this until they get it correct. But they'll know that, well, it's not sausage pizza because they can't come back this way across here. And we know that we guessed incorrectly social media previously, so we're not going to guess that one again. So maybe next round, they'll take my not young clue and guess black hole. We hope. But that's how you indicate incorrect, is you don't move the wizard and you just put a not token. But then, because they got me incorrect, I'm stopped here. This is one step was as far as my wizard got this round. Remember, he needs to get to step 10 by the end of the 5th round. So, everybody's trying to do as much as possible for every player to guess. But now you just go on to some other player, now they're going to guess black's stuff. And then when they're done with black, got all 3 of blacks, or none of blacks, or whatever, then yellow, and then maybe green, and then blue, and then whatever, right? Until everybody has had their turn being guessed on, right? Then the round will end, right? And a couple things will happen. First, everybody will have already put 3 cards out and have 1 card remaining. So everybody will get 3 new cards to add to the ones they have face down. So now this is my hand. Secondly, you put as many additional steps. You keep the steps that you had programmed, but now you're going to add as many additional steps as necessary to bring you up to 3 total steps. So now 1, 2, 3 total steps for round 2. So we're going to change the round tracker. We had done round 1. We are now on round 2 of 5. I put my 4-step token out here, and now I have to add a clue card, a single word clue to each of these steps that are out here. So I have to add an additional word to each of the steps that they didn't, the one that they guessed incorrectly, the one that they did not get to guess at all, because they didn't get to guess my step 3 at all, because they didn't get my step 2 correct. So they were not allowed to guess my step 3. But I will add a card here, I'll add a card here, and I will add 1 card to the new step 4 in my case, okay? So looking at my little map, I go, okay, well hopefully they'll figure out black hole and they'll figure out fire ants, and then I need to get them to air-conditioned shoes, and I'm looking at these, and I'm like, ooh, well, air-conditioned shoes, that's all about being not hot, right? So from fire ants, I'm hoping that between Frisbee and Albert Einstein, and remember that once they get the fire ants, this will be here, so they'll know they can't go back to black hole, right? But so from fire ants, they'll be looking at these, and they'll probably figure out that if I say not hot, that means air-conditioned shoes, right? But I have to also add a new clue word for this. So for black hole, I'm hoping they'll get there with not young, especially since social media has now been eliminated as a choice. But I still have to pick another word. I'm going to say, well, black holes are pretty big. They're massive. So now they know that whatever step 2 is from here, it has to be massive and not young. Well, Frisbees, frosting, fire ants are probably not considered massive. Black holes are probably considered massive. So even if they're still debating whether a black hole can be called not young, they'll probably agree that massive holes can be called massive, not really big, right? So hopefully that'll be a good clue. And then hopefully for fire ants, hopefully they'll understand that fire ants are less mellow, they're more aggressive and attacky than Albert Einstein was. But I'm going to also say, you know what? I'm going to say cruel and not mellow. That really drive home the point, We don't really generally describe Albert Einstein as cruel or not mellow, right? But we might very well describe fire ants that way. So this is how I'm programmed for round 2. And I'm pretty hopeful, right, that they're going to get it, right? But I have seen games where come to round 4, round 5, there are steps that have 2, 3, 4, 5 clues stacked because someone just has had a bad string of luck in the clue words that they've been given and the step that they need to get to, and they just haven't been able to really, communicate, in fewer rounds with fewer clues, what the right choice was. Everybody just keeps guessing something different, right? But let's say in round 2, it gets to be my turn, and this time for step 2 they press black hole. Two things happen. First, they were correct, so I will go to black hole. I will move this here, so I cannot immediately go back to Cookie Monster. They know that. I will get my X token back. I'm going to discard these clue cards because we're done with step 2. And I'm also going to remove this because this is no longer relevant. This was only relevant to remind them that this could not be my step 2. They had guessed it previously and they guessed incorrectly. This reminder is no longer appropriate. You want to remove this immediately because what you don't want to have happen is later in the game I travel all the way back around here and now I need to get them to get to social media, but I've left this X token out the whole game and so they think that that's not a choice. So always immediately recover all the X tokens. If you made a successful step, you should not have any of your X tokens out here, right? You might have 3 X tokens out here because they made incorrect guesses in previous rounds about that step. But as soon as you move your guy indicating you've done a successful step, then remove all of your X tokens because there should be no X tokens from previous steps or this step here. There should be no negative reminder tokens because they got it correct. Okay, recover all those. And you want them, these are component limited, but you want these X's, you need these X's to be able to reverse meaning here because I don't want to say hot for air conditioned shoes, I want to say not hot. So now they're going to guess, and let's say they do get fire ants, and I go, okay, that's awesome. Boom, boom. And let's say they do get air conditioned shoes for my not hot. Yay, I did a good job. All that means is that going into round 3 now, I will be putting out steps 5, 6, and 7 because I will be putting out to where I have a total of 3 steps. And I will have, 3 new cards, at the beginning of round 3. And I will again be looking at 4 cards and choosing appropriate words to, I'm not actually programming these right. I'm just showing, and I might not that one, right? But only 1 card per because they're all new steps, right? And so you just do this round after round. Everybody's doing this and everybody's guessing. And when you get to round 4, it is possible because you've got 10 total steps and you're putting out 3 steps per round. So if people are, guessing all of your steps correctly each round, they will get the first 3 steps in round 1, the second 3 steps in round 2, the third 3 steps, 7, 8, 9 in round 3. So then, and even if they missed one along the way, come round 4, that's the first time there's the potential that you might be putting out step 10, right? Because they might have, been guessing so well that maybe all they need to guess in round 4 is steps 9 and 10, right? That's all you have left. And if they get it and they get you all the way to step 10 in round 4, you take a gold trophy. It says 4th round win. You individually get 1 4th round win. But everybody at the group, including yourself, you're all just getting a score together. So this isn't you did better than the other players. This is you as a table did really well to get me home in the 4th round. And so we collectively get a gold trophy to remember that. And then I would put the gold trophy on top of the 10 and leave this to the end of the game. I would take my wizard away because I'm done. I'd have no steps to program in the final 5th round because they got me to step 10. And I'm done. I can still guess, I just have nothing to program and no clues to give. But if they didn't get me home in, to step 10 in the round, but in the next round, round 5, there's a couple differences. One, in round 5, you can program up to 4 steps. So if someone's really lagging behind, and they, instead of programming up to 3 steps like you could in rounds 1 through 4, in the final round you can program up to 4 steps. So, someone might need their steps 5, 6, 7, and 8. And they have no opportunity to program steps 9 and 10, but at least 5, 6, 7, and 8 is better than just 5, 6, and 7, right? And everybody, because they've got 1 extra step that they can program, they get 1 extra card. So everybody in round 5 will get 4 cards to add to their 1 remaining card, so that they have 5 cards, and then they can program up to 4 steps in round 5. That's the only way that round 5 really differs from rounds 1 through 4, is that it's just 1 extra card, and you can program, if I had needed them to do, 7, 8, and 9, or 7, you get me. I needed them to do 7, 8, 9, and 10, we can do that in round 5, right? 4 steps, programmed from 5 cards. Even if some of these steps were left over from previous rounds and already have cards under them, I'm still be adding 1 card to each of those existing steps and putting the new steps out to have a total of 4 steps in round 5. If they get me home, if they give me this step 10 in round 5, then we keep the 10 and we take a silver trophy. Instead of a gold trophy, the backside of the gold trophy is a silver trophy. This is 5th round win. Again, it's a collective win. You just put it on top of the 10 and, all of that. You keep this in front of you. If they only get me to, let's say they only got me to step 8 by the end of the 5th round, then just keep an 8 in front of you and discard the rest of your tokens, and you don't have any trophy. So at the end of the game, the way this works is you're going to count the last step that was correctly guessed, the last step number that was correctly guessed. For every single player, you're going to add 1 extra point for every silver trophy and 2 extra points for every gold trophy. So if you get somebody to step 10, if you did it around 5, that's going to be worth 10 points because it's going to be step 10 with a silver trophy on top of it. That's going to be an extra point, so that's going to be worth 11 points total. So if you get one of the players to their 10th step in round 5, you're getting 11 points for that player. If you got them to their 10th step in round 4 and they have a gold trophy, that player is worth 12 points. But if they didn't get to round 10, let's say they only got me round 8, I'm worth 8 points. You sum all of those points across all the players, 12 for you because we finished you in round 4. 11 for you because we finished you in round 5, and step 9, 9 for you because we got you to 9, and we only got you to step 7, so 7 for you and 8 for you. And you're going to add up all of those points, and then you're going to divide by the number of players. So for 5 players, we divide that total by 5. Then in the back of the book, it tells you, that average, and it's going to give you a final grade between an F and an A plus, based upon the average number of points. If you've gotten everybody home, then regardless of whether you got everybody home, meaning to their 10th step in round 4 or 5, either way, you're going to be in this maximum category of 11 plus points average per player, which puts you A plus amazing, top of your class. This begins your path to success. So this is what you're shooting for, is get everybody to their 10th step before the end of round 5. If you can do that for everybody, you've got the maximum total score. If you miss out on a couple players, but you did get a couple players home early, it can even out and you could still get a maximum score. Or maybe the next score down, which would be 10 points average per player, right? Which would be A, awesome. I've never seen anyone fail so bad as to get a 1 to 3 points or 4 to 5 points. I've seen some Bs where it's 8 points or 7, maybe a C, which for close, like 7 points average per player, because it can be hard. So, I've told you that some of the things that we do in the way that we play this game is we do not put the wizard on top of the words because we don't want to cover the words. We put them off to this, on the edge. Then we put the disc on the path that they cross rather than on the word itself, right? I told you that in setup, before we all look at our clues and our maps, or our map keys, we look for conflicts between words that are too similar and swap those out. Now I want to talk about how to play this with more than just 6 players. It's obvious how to do it with 6 players. With 7, 8, 9 players, any number of players really, it just means that you have 6 players sitting at the table programming clues, but they could have a partner, they could have a buddy that's quietly suggesting to them, do this for, do this one here, maybe put a knot on it, right? So you can, have an advisor, like I'm programming red, but it's maybe me and my advisor, or maybe like if I've got a young child or a niece, nephew, or son or whatever, and they're advising me, or I've just got another adult player, and what do you think? Should I do this for that? As long as they don't participate in guessing mine, they can help me in programming mine. But meanwhile, everybody can collectively, even if the other players at the table, the 7th, 8th, 9th player or 10th player at the table, are not helping the 6 people, program their clues, they can help in the round table discussion of, I think it's Coliseum and not Hawaii or Frisbee, right? They can have a vote that way. So everybody can join in. Any number of people can join in on the fun of guessing. The only 6-player limitation is that there's only 6 potential clue givers because there's really only room on the map for 6 wizards. Okay, there's only components for 6 wizards. But you can have any number of guessers, and really you can have teams of two players working together on how they're going to, set up a clue, right? So, this game really does scale well. It's not a game that we really get out at 2-player because there's plenty of 2-player games that are more, specifically 2-player games, right? But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players. If people are into word guessing games, they think they like games like code names or taboo, or or any of those, right? And everybody's just good to play a fully collaborative game where you're just getting one score for the whole table, so you're not competing against each other at all. Then this is a great game for all those different player counts. It just opens it up to a lot of fun debate because these clues can be very. You can end up with things like I'm choosing between modest and weak and synthetic and grimy, and I'm having to, get you to guess Hawaii? How do I, with these, how do I get you to guess Hawaii, right? I'm going, maybe Hawaii is not grimy. That's maybe the best I got, I don't know, right? I don't want to say synthetic because that'll take you to Frisbee. If we're coming from Coliseum, right? So it can be challenging because you can randomly just get clue cards that don't line up with the steps you need people to guess. This has got a slightly opposite dynamic from a game like Codenames. Codenames requires the clue giver to think up of a one-word clue off the top of their head that relates to a lot of multiple distinct words out on the table. This is the opposite thing, is you have to think up of a word. You just got to choose a word from your choices that will lead to only one space on the table out of the 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces that your wizard could go to next from where they are. So it's easier in that sense, in that there's less options for you as the clue giver. So there's less there's less analysis paralysis, because you're not stuck here for 30 minutes just trying to pluck the perfect one-word clue out of thin air. If you just think longer and deeper and harder about it, it will come to you. It will come to you. No, these are your options. They're either suck, or they're good, or they're middling. Just you deal with the hand you're dealt. These are the options. Those are the pitfalls. There's no spy, right? There's no automatic game over for anybody. So the worst case scenario is they get it wrong and they have to try again the next round. And if they don't get you all the way home by the end of the round, or round 5, it's not the end of the world. There's other people. You're getting points with those other players, and it's a collaborative score. So even if one player or even 2 players are having a really bad luck, or really making really poor programming decisions with their cards, and people aren't getting good guesses on them and advancing them, very far in their paths, right? It's mystic paths. So you're doing this 10-step path, right? And wizards, mystic paths. You can maybe make up those points by with the other people at the table who are getting more fortunate card draws, or making better, more insightful decisions on which words to program, right? So it's more forgiving in a sense, but it's also a little more limiting, because you can't just, even if you can think of the perfect word, you can't use just any word you think of. You're limited to the words that you have. So it can feel a little more restraining in some ways than code names, but it also feels more approachable and less taxing, less stressful on, because there's not just one clue giver. There's a bunch of clue givers, and everybody is guessing, and everybody's working together. So there's not teams. No one's trying to deceive anybody. No one's trying to be like, oh, I think you should go there because I'm on the other team and I want you to waste your guess. No. Okay? You get it. I've taught it. Those are our thoughts in how we play Mystic Paths. Thank you very much.